Hey, this is Manny with Not Waiting to Live, and in less than 60 seconds, you will learn how to negotiate a lease. Step 1, negotiate the purchase price. I recommend not even mentioning that you're considering leasing until you've agreed to the price of the car. Step 2 is to request the lease option. So once you've agreed to a negotiated price, ask them to write it up as a lease. You'll assume a lease term and miles per year. They'll assume a residual value and an interest rate expressed as a money factor. Step 3 is to make them an offer. So they may try to raise the negotiated price because you're leasing, or they might not tell you what the interest rate will be. So you offer the negotiated price at the lowest interest rate, which right now is around 0.001 money factor, 2.4% APR. Step 4, if they do not accept your offer, shop that offer by email to other dealers in the region. This is the fastest way to negotiate the best price on a lease. I'm sure you still have some questions about how to negotiate a lease, and I have those answers for you in this video. I'm a former Mercedes-Benz car salesman, and a couple years ago, I uploaded a 40-minute saga about how to negotiate and calculate the components of a lease. I even included a graphical example on a whiteboard about how interest rate is calculated and applied towards leasing. And I made that video because I was confident that somebody watching would save $1,000. And they did. It happened thousands of times. That video has a couple 100,000 views now, and I've had a couple years to look at all the questions that I've received and break them down and simplify my answers to them. So this video is really a shortcut to that video. So if you're in the market right now for the fastest answers on what to do next on a lease, first of all, I'd recommend checking out the best resource for finding the current up-to-date incentives and lease promotions, zero down lease deals. Check out findthebestcarprice.com/Manny. They scrape the internet all the time, so you don't have to find out what those deals are. They sponsor this video. They made this video possible, so one way to thank them is to just go in the description, click the link in the description, findthebestcarprice.com/Manny. Now, as for your questions, I want to address those first before I get into the example. If you have questions about how to negotiate the new car price, which is step 1, I've got separate videos on that. It's best to just check those out on my channel. So I've got a video of how to negotiate new car price and how to even make the lowest offer. So how do you make that initial offer without being too low? Because if you are too low, the dealers are just going to dismiss you. You're wasting your time and you're wasting their time. We would get lowball offers all the time and just say, hey, move along, buddy. We don't have to entertain you. But for the rest of leasing, you might have more questions than that. I have summarized my top 11 questions in a different video. It's really got great reviews. I got 100% like ratio on that video where I just answer those questions, go into more detail. It's still half the length of my original leasing video, but more direct to questions that most people have. Again, it's those top 11 questions. And over the years, I've actually created some other videos on leasing. I did a Swapalease project where I took over someone's lease, the remaining year of their lease, and had a great experience with that. So if you're also looking to alternatives other than conventionally leasing, you could look at something like a Swapalease or a Lease Trader. I've reviewed my experience there. So let's look at an example of leasing a Toyota Camry. Let's assume that you've already made up your mind on the decision between buying or leasing. I've got a video that explains all the categorical differences between that choice. I've included in this slide here a snippet from TrueCar.com just as an example of what type of reduction in price could be possible on a car at a given point in time. The only reason this is important for this example is that you stay focused on the negotiated price, because in the second step, once you agree to that price, they're going to produce a lease quote, and there's a ton of numbers on this page. This is a snippet from an actual Toyota Camry lease option that has a lot of different line items that are designed to confuse you and cause you to lose focus on what you're agreeing to. So zooming in on this, we're trying to find the important parts of this lease quote. We want to understand what in this quote is relevant to us? Well, what's the sale price of the car? You can see here next to the little green asterisk, and if you can't see because you're looking on your mobile phone, I'll just verbally describe this to you. Also, if you check out the slides on the blog, it might be easier to follow along. But the sale price of the car here shows an agreed upon value. They're showing that under the column of gross capitalized cost. That's a term that honestly gets used inconsistently from one dealer to the next, from one manufacturer to the next. So you're just trying to sniff out what's the actual sale price of the car. And in this particular lease quote, they've got a sale price of the car, which may or may not be what you negotiated. Then they're adding in additional items. Well, you want to understand what the additional items are. I happen to know that for this particular lease quote, the additional item was an acquisition cost, which is a standard fee. It could be in that range of $650. That's fairly typical. And that is the cost for the financial institution for procuring a lease, putting together documents, facilitating the whole process, whether that's the manufacturer's financial company or third party. That's usually a fee that's involved. But they're adding that to the sale price of the car, and they're coming up with a term called net capitalized cost. That's what you're really focusing on as far as the sale price of the vehicle. Well, what's the residual value of the car? We can see that in the lease quote as well. We see a residual amount. That's important to know because probably the biggest component of a lease payment is the depreciation. It's the difference between what you paid for and what you and the dealer agree the car is worth, or you and the financial institution agree the car is worth at the end of the lease. Where is the down payment on this lease option? This is one to pay attention to because there's a couple things going on and they're particularly confusing. So you're seeing in the lower right hand box for the total due at lease signing. That is a down payment, except not all of that, and in this case none of that, counts as a down payment on the car. Because what's going on in this example? Well, for total due at lease signing, they say, well, there's $918 due at lease signing, but $400 of that went towards the first month payment, $80 of that went towards a document fee, and $433 of that went towards license and registration. $0 of it went towards a cap cost reduction, which would be a true down payment, a reduction of what is owed. So keep in mind when you're putting down a down payment on a lease, it does not necessarily mean that you're paying additional money to reduce the cost of the car. What else do we care about? Well, tax, title, registration, we see that's spread out on this sheet as well, because the license and registration fees, which vary from state to state, is itemized in one box for the down payment. But then you'll also see for this particular car in this particular state, and sales tax varies from state to state and how they're applied with cars. In this lease quote, the monthly tax or the sales tax is a component of the monthly payment. So it's important to identify that and understand where that is and how that's affecting the price of the car. Then we see acquisition fee. I've already talked about how they crammed it in there. They did not identify it. They did not call it out by its name. And you can actually see in the bottom right of this lease quote, they used the phrase upfront acquisition fee, and they titled it $0. Well, that is intentionally misleading because you are in fact paying an acquisition fee. It is upfront, but it's broken out per month. And so just by the distinction of, well, you're paying per month, they feel like they don't have to show you're paying an acquisition fee. What else do you care about? Disposition fee, that's the turn-in price of a lease turn-in fee, which is for Toyota, it's typically around $350. On this lease offer, you don't see it at all, but that's something to be aware of. You need to ask that dealer or the competing dealers, how much am I paying to turn in this lease? The easiest way I found to negotiate that item is to simply refuse that in advance. Talk about that before you sign the deal. Hey, when this lease is up, I'm not going to pay a disposition fee. I'm not going to pay a turn-in fee. If I lease with you again, I will. If I don't want to be penalized for that. That is something that they usually are willing to negotiate. The acquisition fee, not so much. Now, let's go on to the third step. The reason that we want them to make us an offer first is because it's a lot easier to work with the dealers that way. Most car sales people are not versed, educated, or interested in the finer points of leasing. Most of them don't even have access to the programs and information to develop a lease quote. So the best way to start that conversation or negotiation is just have them start with a specific offer on a specific car. And then reach out to them. Say, hey, once you got their offer, thank you for taking the time to write up this lease. I'm ready to agree to a lease today at this price, the negotiated price, and this money factor. The lowest one right now that's typically acceptable is 0.001. If you get less than that, what you're typically seeing is just a much larger acquisition fee buried in the lease offer. But you'll notice on that lease option, what's missing is the money factor. They don't reveal how much is paid in rent charge, interest, and that's fairly typical. But the shortest, quickest way to cut into this is to just go right for the offer. Hey, I'm going to pay with this price. I'm going to pay at this money factor. And if you're curious where the money factor comes from, I send you back to that really long video, the 40-minute saga, where I really explain how that actually works. If you're curious, you can check out the second half of that video to understand where that comes from and what that means. But for the quick and dirty negotiations, and for most people, you don't really need to understand. You just need to make a strong offer. And if they reject your offer, then it's time to shop that offer. So you take the same points that you have and you send that out to dealers around the region. And these other dealers, because they're the same manufacturer, they should have a similar structure that you now understand to the lease. So you know where to look for what is the sale price, what is the acquisition fee, what is the disposition fee, what is the tax title registration, how is that a part of this? It's important to just have that initial lease offer just to make your the offers you send out to everybody else more productive, a better use of your time, a better use of their time. I have all the other videos that you need to answer your questions on leasing on this channel. Check those out. Also, thank the sponsor for making this video possible by clicking the link in the description. Find the best car, price.com/Manny. And as always, I thank you for your time. If you have a question on leasing, comment below and look forward to the next video.